Alex Ansary here. It is March 26th in the year 2018. So one of the things that I've been doing this year more than last year is going to the river more, immersing myself in water more, bathing more, if you will, walking more. Maybe I'll go walking in the forest later today. We're not immune to the effects of geoengineering here in rural Colorado. In fact, it's been pretty bad lately. I'm seeing the haze come up. It's like an invading army, but I'm really hoping that it's going to be a nice day. But is there a reason that we're in this matrix? Have you ever wondered that? You know, I've always asked that question. What are we doing in this matrix? Why are we here? How do we evolve beyond this matrix? I'm in a public park, so this is an intersection of energy and a lot of people that pass by here. So as the moment starts up, 9 o'clock in the morning, now that the car is working, and I pray to the Creator before leaving today, you know, as I'm going to pray on a more regular basis for the car's health, because that is very essential to me right now. You know, even to the point where I've considered stepping back from the internet. I've stepped back from some of the Facebook engagement. Even if I don't necessarily comment on something or respond, it just may mean that I'm pulling back because I've been so immersed with it for so long. I can also hear some construction work, the swinging of a hammer going on in the background. So I wanted to address Mark's question, and I also want to thank Justin and Randy for both signing up to patreon.com. So I'm uploading, today I uploaded 2 private 15-minute podcasts. I'll be doing more for the online supporters at Patreon. So private podcasts over on that medium, expanding on some of the topics that are here on YouTube. Maybe even talking about some topics that may be too controversial for YouTube. So he wanted to hear more with regards to spiritual ideas, modern Gnostic thinking. I don't necessarily go by the book. I use my life experiences that have guided me to a certain level of understanding, and I can see parallels with some of the things that I have been saying, as well as others that are citing the Nag Hammadi or are discussing general Gnostic concepts and principles. So the question from Mark was, how may our current predicament relate to the treatment of animals? And maybe even the question of evolving beyond this matrix. And even Mark Passio has brought this up. And some of us may not agree with necessarily everything that we've said, but some things are spot on. And for a lot of us, you know, there's certain button issues, like evolving beyond the dominator male, for example, in the support of the dominator. Haven't really talked about this recently, but, you know, this was really strong in my consciousness within Portland. And there's a lot of counterfeit spiritual teachings out there. There are people still holding up this dominator system. The first thing that I want to get into is that it's more than PETA protests. We got to get beyond hypocrisy. For example, you have people that are criticizing the cruelty to animals, but what about other sentient beings? Which Mark included in his question. What about other sentient beings, not just animals? So we're talking about the living earth and how we treat it, and we're talking about each other. And so you'll see some people that say they're animal rights activists and they're against dominators, but they may actually still be in support of those dominator destruction systems, the military-industrial complex, or those sitting presidents or media figures, Alex Jones and others, that are propping up really an expansion of what has been U.S. foreign policy and the demonization of particular sentient beings because of their religion or ethnicity. So this goes in opposite of higher consciousness. You'll even find people that call themselves Gnostics that describe the archons as immigrants, basically, or the less white world being that of the archons. And so when people are mixing their own racial theologies and belief systems, right, with Gnostic literature, then you're dealing with a really toxic combination of materials. So toxic combination materials we don't want to be involved in, nor hypocrisy. So if someone truly cares for all living creatures, for example, because that's what's necessary, then how do they talk about, for example, just Monsanto, or just the war on organic food, or just the way that chickens are treated, for example, right? But what about humans, right, that are being droned out of existence for having a wedding because they live in a country that was blamed for the 9/11 attacks, even though you have millions of people that had nothing to do with government functions that were basically held hostage by the Taliban, even if you go with the official story. So you want to talk about inhumanity. You want to talk about some of the greatest sins against the Creator's creations that have ever taken place, but that are taking place at a more accelerated level now that they have technology to lead people into certain directions of destruction. So that's the issue. The issue is, I think that we need to have greater compassion for all and for people that have been persecuted, to resist the inclination to attempt to do what has been done to us. There is something about turning the other cheek. So someone could turn around and play that same racist game against someone else to show them what it's like. But is that going to heal it? No, that's going to amplify the gang warfare. You know, you listen to the statements of Farrakhan, for example, and someone else will say, well, that basically makes it okay for the other side to say their own rhetoric. Or you can use some other example. No, it doesn't make it okay. You know, people were saying, well, so what if Cambridge Analytics has our data? They did this in 2012 with Barack Obama. Facebook did. That doesn't make it right. Oh, wow, this is a new revelation. Let's talk about it. And let's see if there can be healing. You know, between myself and perhaps people that were Obama loyalists that called me a right-wing conspiracy theorist. Now the right-wingers call me a liberal. You see, it's that same game of divide and conquer. It's inhumane also, the way people use politics to put people in a box. So, compassion for all living beings. And so we hear about this in Buddhism, for example, as one of their tenets. But I've never, at least in this life, officially been a Buddhist, although I've read some of the literature. It really just mirrors my own understanding. And so there could be parallels that I can find between some of the things that I talk about in ancient text, particular religions, and it's good to read about different philosophies and understandings of the nature of reality, from different cultures and from different people, from different times and from different lands. It really helps get a larger picture. And in that larger picture, you can see the parallels where they're stumbling upon the same truth. And so, you know, when we're talking also about the unseen forces and their manipulation over mankind, and particular theories about this predicament that we're in, from the modern David Icks to the Native Americans, do you see this parallel in the telling of the story of the predicament that mankind is in? So, learning compassion, learning empathy, developing emotions, for example, and I think that these things are intense topics for the average human being to hear. It's so alien to today's day and age for people to talk like this. To me, there's no mystery why we're here. I'm not confused about it. The question is, am I doing enough to evolve beyond this reality? Have I spoken enough for those people that have been victimized by this world? And I can't speak for every ethnic group, but just speak then in a general tone or tongue. And because I face my own discrimination from every racial group, including that of my father's family, it helps me to understand this has more to do with my soul and the uniqueness of me that is alien to so many of these different ethnic groups and tribes. The nature of my outsider-ish has a lot to do with the soul that's temporarily inhabiting this combination of genetics, whether I was thrust into it, falling down, cast down back into the earth, or something that I picked. Same question goes for you. But I do think that we're part of a soul group family, which I've spoken of more last year than this year. And our destiny is to evolve beyond this prison planet. We can help each other, learn compassion. And it's through this speaking and it's through this instantaneous sharing of ideas that we can accelerate this process of awakening. So there's going to be videos like this that I put up immediately onto YouTube. And then there's going to be a written work that from this point onward, I'm going to take more seriously to continue to add to that, to build to what will at one point be a very lengthy, detailed book with all of my ideas and most of my significant memories of my life put into a work of literature. So I could see the impact of one book now that I've seen the impact of 4,000 videos over the course of 14 years with YouTube stats at about 6.5 million views. That's just one element of expression within this matrix. The second half of my life, now that I'm 38, there's going to be an element of it that's going to be expressed in another way. So you think about compassion, there's definitely some anger that I went through last year. I think a lot of us did. But also understanding those that we might perceive to be our enemies and having compassion for them and not doing to them or responding to them with the energy that they're throwing at us and not even warring with them. Typically, we're wired into that type of fight or flight to the point where there are people involved in witch wars and things of that nature. And it's like, even when we're talking about the supernatural and the archons, the idea isn't to have a war with them per se, even if the terminology comes up spiritual warfare, but rather to evolve beyond being susceptible to their attacks on our energy, to their influence over our thoughts, and thus our behaviors. To evolve beyond that. And so there's ways to disconnect. There's ways to decord. And I found that I need to decord from my social media engagement. And so that's not going to be necessarily offense to a number of people. My personal Facebook page is still on. But the amount of time that I'm going to spend on that personal page and going back with people, that's going to be reduced. And here and there I'll talk with people on the side. But not too many people. But see, there's reasons for that. Part of maintaining our humanity is maintaining our compassion for others and not letting the technology make us angry monsters with no compassion. And I believe that I've witnessed the influence of Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, the rise of it, and how it's changed people that I've known throughout my entire life. There was a time where there was a little more excitement when I started doing what I was doing and talking about these things at the age of 24 in the year 2004 or 2005. Only like a year after that period in which I told you about in a recent video, escaping the AA cult and a period in life that could have destroyed me. But somehow catapulted me to, it's like jumping on a trampoline, like, ow, I fell down, boing. Like interviewing David Icke a year later, meeting Alex Jones a year later, the old Alex Jones, other people, doing traveling, dating a woman that was very close to me for a while, speaking to a city and a people that were very close to me during that time. And I can see how technology, I can see how the overabundance of disinformation on the left and the right and on the internet has unfortunately made it more difficult in some ways than it was in 2004 or 2005 to introduce some of these ideas to someone that perhaps had never heard of these ideas. But you see now there's so many people that are take the red pill, and escape the matrix. But ultimately they've lost their compassion. And so they talk about escaping the matrix, but it's a marketing buzz term as far as I'm concerned when they use it. Because of the movie and because it's a trending topic to a certain degree. But what does it really mean? And I think the core of it is to evolve beyond the illusions of separation, hatred of others, which includes having compassion for others. And, I remember when I was attacked by a group of black kids several times in my adulthood. Well, actually one time, but during the drug phase, I was ripped off by a few guys and had a knife pulled out on me that big. But even later on, when I was involved in activism, they blew smoke in my face. I said, don't blow smoke in my face. And the guy turned around and nearly knocked me out, stunned me, but didn't knock me out, but got me square on and then followed with a round kick to my solar plex. And that alarmed me because I wasn't aware enough, even at that age of 25, 26, to be aware enough that gang of 3 to 5, them laughing at the leader, knocks some, in their eyes, some punk white guy walking down the street. Yeah, show him who's boss. And there was another time where a group of younger black kids attacked me when I was 10 years old. It was in a bad part of Portland. Mom drove me up to from the country, a half hour away, to go swimming in a bad part of Portland. She talked to her boyfriend outside, and they attacked me. Yeah, my mom later told me it was my karma. That was some of the New Age disinformation I learned about early on. But see, I didn't take that out on the kids later on and begin to call black people the N-word. You know, I can count maybe 5 different times I've been attacked by blacks. But they've all been Portland blacks. They've all been people that have been, in a way, affected by a very negative energy. Not all blacks in Portland, but during that particular time and period. And something about my energy, you know, walking by them and them determining that I was their prey at the moment. But see, I've also met other people that are black that aren't like that, or that have found my channel. I've also experienced racism from one particular black guy in the streets who's saying derogatory things towards Iranians when I was just asking people, like directed at me, and I'm not Iranian, but I was asking people about what they felt in 2007 about an attack on Iran. George Bush was the president then. And I'm looking at this guy who's yelling at me in the streets, acting like, you know, I'm some escaped Iranian who's asking about people's opinion about the war because I have an agenda. It's like there was real hate there. In a day and age where people just put the focus on white supremacy, you know, they really forget some of the hatred from others. So a lot of these folks that may even see themselves suppressed by racism and white supremacy, a lot of them aren't ready to escape the matrix because they're responding with hate and anger themselves. And that's the issue. So it actually takes the bigger man or spirit to evolve beyond their lower tendencies, to respond to the harm and trauma that's been done to them. It takes the bigger person to evolve above that and to care about that person. You know, it may be my path to put out content on YouTube that could even reach those very people that are stuck in that hateful space. I can even think of derogatory things towards whites that were directed at me from blacks on some of my videos about relationships. And it's like, that's a test for each one of us, where we're scratching our head going, like, you don't even know what you're talking about. You know, and some of the discrimination that I felt from this other group, there you're throwing me in this group, viewing me as your biological enemy, your natural enemy. And it's like when you live a lifetime in those shoes, where you experience those unfortunate encounters with different ethnic groups that think that you're their natural predator or prey, that's a challenge for that person to have compassion for them as a soul and realize that these people, some of these people are really messed up. And so, you know, the conversation kind of started with bringing up the issue with animals, and that is definitely there. And we'll talk more about that. But I'm not a perfect person, nor am I a vegan. But I understand why people go on the vegan path. And they choose to have absolute compassion for not just human lives, but also elements of nature, to where they don't intentionally pollute it. And they don't go consuming the flesh of animals. It's not just a health thing. It's a genuine spiritual practice. And I understand that. But for all the people that are involved in animal rights activism in this country, their protests against what I and some of you see as this ongoing genocide that's been taking place in the Middle East. Their inability to have compassion for them shows me that they're falling short of where they really should be. It's not just about organic food and having compassion for organic food and animals. It's having compassion for all living creatures. So that's my message today. I'll keep walking and bring you more content.